Hello there, Servum17 once again. This is my Bayonetta 2 Infinite Climax difficulty video walkthrough. This is the prologue. It's entitled The World of Chaos. So here we have it, folks. Bayonetta 2, it's been what, 5 years since the first one? Never thought we'd see the time that this game would be created or released, and thanks to Nintendo we have it, and we now get to play it. And hopefully if you're having difficulties with it, I can guide you through some of those tougher moments. So right here at the beginning, the first thing you'll notice is you're going to be fighting some creatures that did not show up on the previous difficulties. I'm going to do my best to tell you the names of the creatures. Sometimes I will not get them immediately, so do bear with me, but this first introductory video is going to be more about what the guide is than anything real else. The prologue mission is pretty simple stuff. You're taking on standard angels. By now your timing should be good enough to get the witch time, and you should be using the weapons that you're comfortable with. The only difference here is this guy. I believe he's called Glamour, and he is Bayonetta 2's equivalent of Beloved. Or Beloved. And he's pretty tough. The first thing you're going to notice on Infinite Climax is how much more quickly some attacks come out. Bayonetta 2, for some reason, has enemies that telegraph their attacks considerably longer than they ever did in Bayonetta 1. And if you're a new player, it's going to give you a pretty big advantage, because you're going to be able to see the attacks, you're going to be able to respond to them, and then you're going to be able to dodge them. And it's going to help out the people that aren't used to this kind of game. So, for a newer, someone who's not quite as associated with action games as others, it's a good thing. But for somebody like myself, who is well acquainted with Bayonetta and knows a lot of the tenets and the traits of a lot of the enemies, they attacked incredibly quickly on the previous game. There were some attacks that were telegraphed, but nowhere near to the extent that this game does it. And every so often when the quick one does turn up, it can really throw you off, because they've kind of juxtaposed these quick attacks with these incredibly long attacks. And the funny thing is, when they do have such large windows of telegraphing, you dodge prematurely and end up taking damage, because you anticipate when they move, that's when you have to evade. And a lot of the times, that's not the case. But the differences on this difficulty, the first one is a very controversial one. There's witch time. You're watching it right now, you probably wonder what's happening. This is not on Infinite Climax, you're using witch time. Well, this game has witch time on the hardest difficulty. And the way that they've balanced it, or so it seems, is they've reduced the duration of what witch time gives you. So instead of having, quite an ambient, not even the right word, quite a modest amount of witch time when you do dodge a powerful attack, now you don't have nowhere near the same amount. You're facing enemies that are different in different areas, which is a staple of Platinum games. The enemies seem to have more of a proclivity towards parrying, which is a technique, whereas at any moment they seem to be able to interrupt you, and it stuns you for a second and interrupts your combo. Very, very dangerous stuff, especially when you take on some of the more damaging enemies, but we'll speak about those guys when they turn up. Additional parts, of course, you take massive damage. The enemies seem to take increased damage. It's all pretty basic stuff, but the witch time is big, because on Bayonetta 1 you didn't have it on the hardest difficulty, and that was the difficulty. On this game, because they give it you, you'd think it'd be easier, but in some ways it's not, because the amount of witch time they give you is almost a delusion of grandeur. You'll start doing a combo, and witch time will end before you've gotten into the juice of it, so unless you use dodge offset, you're probably about to get smacked. And I've been punished quite a lot during my time with this game, because it ends so abruptly and I'm in the middle of thinking I have the upper hand. And of course on Infinite Climax the enemies can recover incredibly quickly. They're very difficult to launch, they're very difficult to do any of the exploitative attacks like the grabs and things, so unless you're in witch time you're a lot more vulnerable than you might realise, and when the attacks come out quicker, so too does your life bar drain. But here comes the Chapter 2 boss, who's going to have a go at us. You have to dodge that swipe or it will do damage to you, and then it's going to get to this little bit of hero jumping, and we're going to be progressing to the next sequence. So anybody who watched my demo impressions will recognise all this footage. And once again we're going to be charged with fighting Belief, who is the angel that's about to attack us. If you press dodge during the cutscene before he hits you, you'll get immediate witch time. The witch time it gives you is a rather long a rather large window of it, so enjoy it as best you can. You might notice I'm using a chain chomp. I probably should have discussed this earlier. This weapon is hilarious. The only problem I have with it is it has kind of one combo, which is a group of kicks, and all of them can be held. And what Bayonetta does is she kicks the chomp onto the enemies and it attaches itself like a bomb, and then it blows up. And if you watch the style meter, it does a lot of style points. It's really good for building style. It's just because there's only one combo, it looks like you're doing the same thing over and over and over again, and the combo itself is quite slow as well. So as much as I really think the move is hilarious and it's probably going to have some really fun uses, it's not the best weapon. And I'm going to be doing something interesting with the weapons here, guys. If I were to put on the weapons that I'm comfortable with, I would probably play a lot better. But the walkthrough isn't really about skill. It's not really about demolishing the game with supreme shows of just insane, you know, reflexes and all that kind of great stuff. What it is going to be is essentially some strategies and some experiences that work against most of the situations through the game on the hardest difficulty. It's intended to be easily replicated, so the mistakes in it are a sign of both my lack of experience with the game and my ignorance towards the differences in the nuance and the mechanics from the first game to this one. And it's a double-sided sword. On the one side, this is my second playthrough, I'm still learning just like everybody else, so it gives it that humble nature of being quite easy to familiarise with because you're probably still learning as well. But then again, on the other side, there is the angle of there will be some insane strategies coming in the next few months that even myself might pioneer on different videos, but chances are you're not going to see too many of them on this initial walkthrough. However, I intend to cover Bayonetta 2 quite extensively post-guide, and depending on whether or not Nintendo give me a hard time with the audio flagging or the ID content matching and all that nastiness, you know, the copyright strikes and things, will depend on how much it features. But bringing it back to what I was saying, every chapter I'm going to change weapons, and I'm going to try and use a different combination of weapons every chapter. I could just put on the ones I like the best, the ones I'm more comfortable with, the ones I'm more familiar with, and I'd probably be much more successful. But I think it'll be more entertaining to watch, and more interesting if you see me discovering new strategies and new weapons while I play. Because I already have quite a foundation of Bayonetta's mechanics, I'm just learning, as I've mentioned, the differences in this new game. And let me tell you now, folks, there are a lot of mechanical differences here, so much so that I'm kind of stunned by some of them, and this walkthrough is going to go into quite a lot of detail about a lot of them. Some of them are positive, some of them are negative, and hopefully it's going to be a little bit different to the rest of the walkthroughs that you see on YouTube, as I fight Gamora right here, which you'll have fought this guy at least once, so I'm hoping you can see his tells and when he does his bites, when he does his blasts, and when he does his tail attack. If you dodge them, you want to respond in kind with whatever attacks you can, and to keep your combo here, just keep shooting him. It's a strategy you should be using all the time if you're going to go for combo, if you're at least going to go to try and get some rings. Whenever you're not doing something, you should be shooting. It's just the simplest way to link moves and keep your combo alive. Another thing I need to make quite clear here, folks, is because this game has been out for a month in Japan, there's already a ton of content on YouTube for it. I did get the game early, but in the grand scheme of things, I got the game late. Everybody in, you know, the West kind of did. So it's not going to be a mad rush like Evil Within was to get my guide up, because I'm under no illusion that there are already plenty of them there. Albeit, I hope mine is better, and I hope, you know, you enjoy mine more, but I can be a little bit more lax on the upload schedule. That doesn't mean I'm going to be, you know, not working feverishly to get this made and get this, you know, visible as soon as possible. I'll probably just not be spamming the sub boxes as much as normal. I say normal, when a new project is out. Like, if I had an Xbox One and I were to purchase Sunset Overdrive and Lords of Fallen, those two games I would be smashing as heavily as I could, but that's not happening for quite some time, unfortunately. But this is Bayonetta 2. This is the beginning. This is an amazing game and the start of hopefully a very interesting and helpful walkthrough. If not, please let me know in the comments. But yeah, you take care now.